All right, here we go.
It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
Yeah. No fear here in Declare your independence of me, Ernest Hancock from the Sonoran Desert. Oh, we got Stewart Rhodes on OathKeepers, the relaunch. We're going to learnify ourselves all about Stewart Rhodes is back on the street, doing stuff. We're going to find out every little thing. Now, he and I just talked here recently. It was a little bit ago we had a conversation, and it was great to have him back. We got to hang out at Ron Paul's 90th birthday party in Texas in August, and it's definitely time to talk to Stewart Rhodes. Now, we've done plenty of shows before. I know Stewart pretty well. He's been here in Arizona. We hang out in Texas, go to different things, whatever. So, I'm a Stewart Rhodes fan. But the government, the man, they're not so much a fan, and we'll find out why. But, Trump commuted his sentence. Yeah, that's one thing. Are you going to get a pardon? They just commuted the sentence. What's up?
Well, he just pardoned a whole bunch of people that were alternate electors for the challenge against the unconstitutional and illegal election of 2020, and he also pardoned some of his attorneys that worked on that. But it's interesting. The pardon language actually for them says it lists these people, but not limited to these people. And it talks about anybody who stood up for, advocated for the slates of electors being rejected, the ones that were unconstitutionally done, and supporting the alternate slates. Well, hey, I was one of those guys. I did that in multiple public speeches after the election in 2020, all the way through November, December, and even January of 2021, and open letters of President Trump. So I'm going to take that and run with it. So I'm going to presume that does include me, and I'm going to pressure the Trump administration to honor that. Because I think I certainly was an outspoken advocate for the alternate slates of electors. Absolutely. All the way through my trial, in fact, I called out the election as being unconstitutional and illegal and stolen. I said that to the jury at my trial. I said that to the judge at my sentencing. I never backed down. And in large part, that's why they slammed me with 18 years of prison. I refused to back off of the truth.
Well, does that mean you're more likely to get a pardon or less likely to get a pardon?
Well, it depends on who's in control. If President Trump is actually making the decisions, I would say I'd be more likely to get a pardon. Not only was I loyal to our country, I was also loyal to him, along with the other 14 of us that did not receive pardons that got commutations. Joe Biggs, Dominic Pizzola, Zach Reel, Kenny Harrelson, Jessica Watkins. These are all military veterans in particular we've lost all our disability payments. I got a nasty letter from the VA telling me that I can no longer be buried in Veterans Cemetery. I know all the rest of us have lost our benefits as well. And the VA can do nothing for us until we get a pardon. So yeah, I think that we should be included in this latest wave of pardons for exactly the reasons laid out in what they said from Ed Martin's office. Because these are the people that stood up and advocated for the alternate slates. So those who were a part of the alternate slates, those who were legal counsel on that, and then those who advocated and stood up for it should be pardoned. And that's what it says. On our pardon, it says not limited to these people. And so those of us that went to bat for President Trump and stood the heat and endured multiple years of solitary confinement. I did about a year and 3 months solitary confinement. Some of my co-defendants did over 2 years. And so we went to bat and went to trial and refused to bend the knee and kiss the ring. I believe we should be included in this latest pardon. So that's what we're going to be pushing for. Yeah.
This is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. I don't know if this is going to serve that interest of yours or not. But, here we got up on the screen, Oath Keepers, Guardians of the Republic, not on our watch, Oath Keepers relaunch, and then you're talking about going to Washington, D.C. again. What up with that?
Well, like I told Alex Jones on his show the other day, I was on there for all three of his broadcasts, and I said that, it's nut cutting time for us in the base to push President Trump to keep his promises, to go after the deep state, to take down the bad guys, the people that stole, not just the ones that put us falsely in prison, but the ones who stole the 2020 election. And I think bigger than that, all the pedophiles at the very top of the deep state need to be taken down. I've said this for years. He should use his absolute power to declassify and expose them. But the least, we should be seeing prosecutions of the ones that were caught blatantly, committing perjury, not just in my case, in our trial for the Oath Keepers, but across the spectrum of J6 cases. You had police officers and FBI agents who have been caught committing perjury on the stand. They should be put on trial for that. And why is it, Michael Byrd, it's the name of the Capitol police officer who murdered Ashley Babbitt, shot an unarmed woman in the face. Why is he not on trial for murder? So it makes no sense. And so that's why we want to go and urge President Trump. Job one is fire Pam Bondi, fire Todd Blanche, the assistant director, AG, and then also fire Kash Patel and fire Tan Bongino, because they are all now obvious blocks who are impeding any kind of actual redress or draining of the swamp. And I think it's abundantly clear, and I can walk through why I say that, but I believe they all should be fired and replaced with someone else that can have a chance to do the job right. I like Tulsi Gabbard. I think she's got the best intent of everyone I've seen so far in his administration, but I believe he needs someone else like that. I mean, Ed Martin would be great. Make Ed Martin the Attorney General. So he could fire Bondi, fire Blanche, and then put Ed Martin in as acting Attorney General, and then fight for his confirmation. Or once you put him in as acting Attorney General, when you get a recess, like during the Christmas holiday, just make a recess appointment. I forgot how long it takes for them to get rid of a recess appointment. You have at least 6 months, I believe, of an active Attorney General that will do it. I trust Ed Martin's intent too. So Tulsi Gabbard, Ed Martin, those are the two brightest.
Okay, whoa. I'm not familiar with Ed Martin. Give me an Ed Martin bio.
Ed Martin was part of Phyllis Schlafly's Eagle Forum. That's why he's known as Ed Eagle Martin. He was also part of the advocacy for us J6ers while we were political prisoners. And he's a staunch constitutionalist and America Firster. And he is now the pardon attorney for the U.S. government. Problem is he's under Blanche. And I believe Todd Blanche is a major block inside the DOJ against Ed Martin being able to go out there and do what he wants to do for the pardons. And Ed Martin was also placed over the weaponization section of the DOJ. But what we hear, this is from multiple insiders, is that he's not being given the resources he needs to actually go after people. That Todd Blanche, who was a Democrat and really still is blocking all of that. And so that's why Bondi and Blanche need to be fired. And I think Ed Martin deserves a shot. So one example of him standing up is when I first got out of prison. Within 2 days, myself and Ivan Raiklan were in Congress advocating for the J6ers who had not yet been set free. In particular, Jeremy Brown, an Oathkeeper Special Forces veteran who was still being held in prison. A judge in Florida was denying that the pardon had anything to do with his conviction in Florida. He was railroaded by the FBI with false evidence. He wanted to get retribution on him because he blew the whistle on their attempt to recruit him as a confidential human source against Oathkeepers, a paid informant. They offered him money. And to his credit, he took the interview they did with him, he recorded it and put it out on all over the media. So for revenge for that, they raided his house, and then the first thing they did is they shut down his security cameras, just like the raid at Mar-a-Lago. They raided his house in Florida with a search warrant from a DC judge, and then lo and behold, they find 2 grenades on his property that have no connection to him, none of his DNA, no fingerprints, no fibers from him or his dogs. In other words, they just entrapped him and planted false evidence. So when Trump pardoned him, along with all the others besides us 14, all the rest got pardons, including Jeremy Brown. But the bad guys still inside the DOJ and judge were like, oh no, this weapons charge he got in Florida for having grenades and a short-barreled rifle, that's not included in the pardon. But it really was. It's obviously, it's a search warrant issued by a judge in D.C. who hated him because of the history with him blowing the whistle on the FBI. And also, he was there with us on January the 6th pulling security detail. And on January 6th, he didn't go in the Capitol. He escorted a little old lady back to her hotel room. But so he was an innocent man, wrongly accused. But it connects the fruit of the poisonous tree. Their persecution of him in Florida came straight from a judge in Washington, D.C. But they're pretending like it didn't. So he was still in prison. So Ivan Raiklin and I go into members of Congress. We went to Gus Bilirakis' office. He's the congressman for the district where Jeremy Brown is from. We went into his office and met with his chief of staff, met with the congressman. We met with other members of Congress advocating for supporting his release and release of other J6ers. Well, Judge Mehta, my judge, had sentenced me to 18 years, saw that because we had a little mini press conference down in the basement of the Capitol outside the cafeteria. The media caught wind that we were there, and like 30 of them surrounded us, me and Ivan. We just held court for 2 hours, talking to the media, laying out that yes, the election was stolen. Here's how they stole it. Yes, J6 was set up. Here's how they set us up. And our trials were farces and show trials. We just laid it all out. And Judge Mehta lost it and threw a gasket and issued an order that I was forbidden from being in Washington, D.C. Myself and my co-defendants, the OathKeepers that were still, not pardoned and still under his thumb for probation, that we could no longer be in D.C. without his permission. We couldn't enter the Capitol or Washington, D.C. without his express permission, is what he said in this order. Well, Ed Martin, at that time, he just came in as the acting U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C. He filed a memo within 2 days, or a motion to the judge dressing Judge Mehta down, saying you have no authority to do this. They have every right, along with every other American, to go and exercise their right of free speech and assembly, petition their government disagreements, and go talk to members of Congress. So you're illegitimate. And they shouldn't even be on probation. They shouldn't be on supervised release at all. President Trump's intent was that these men be freed and released, even though they only got a commutation. They should be freed from any restrictions on their free speech and travel. And the judge backed off. And in response to that, Judge Mehta, he kind of threw a little mini temper tantrum saying, well, I believe that the restrictions of supervised release do apply. I don't believe the pardon applies to that. But since it won't be enforced by this new administration, I'm going to go ahead and remove the restrictions. So thanks to Ed Martin standing up to Judge Mehta, I myself and my co-defendants were released from any pretrial limitations on travel. So we were no longer on supervised release. So that's why I trust Ed Martin.
All right. Got the Ed Martin background. Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Bongino. I'm surprised at where, Pam, I could, whatever. I didn't know anything about her and whatever. But Kash Patel's actions and being in the news with his girlfriend, whatever, I don't care about. And but Bongino, I was really expecting him to be more vocal, against what's going on. And I haven't seen him. You're saying that you know of him. He's out there talking, doing whatever he's doing. But I haven't seen anything.
Right.
No right. Video, where'd he go?
Well, here's what happened. They came in with all these promises of draining the swamp and cleaning out the FBI. Kash Patel said he's going to turn the Hoover building into a museum of the deep state. I read his book. Government Gangsters, when I was in prison. So it sounded great. And of course, I listened to Dan Bongino while I was in solitary confinement. I had a little AM/FM radio. I'd listen to his show every day. And he's railing about the Epstein files and railing about the deep state and railing about the Butler assassination attempt. He's like, this doesn't smell right. There's something there. So both of them were talking like, hey, we're going to go in there and clean house and expose what's really going on, and we're going to hold the bad guys accountable. That's what they ran on. That's what Trump ran on. And so when Trump was elected in 2024, I think in large part because the American people trusted him to take the bad guys down finally, he turned around and appointed the two firebrands we all expected to go in there and take it to him. So, but then when they got in there, it's like invasion of the body snatchers. Where'd they go? When you watch that interview they did with Fox News, I think her name was Bertolino. It was horrible. Yeah, it's like, Epstein.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah, Epstein really killed himself. And also the Butler investigation into the attempted assassination of President Trump. That investigation's closed because the shooter is dead. That's what they said. It's ridiculous.
Okay, I'm wondering why. This is. It seems to me, just not being an idiot and having some experience in this stuff, that Trump has been, I don't know if co-opted is the word, definitely influenced, or he's using it as blackmail or something over somebody else to get something he wants, and what's that something? And this is the problem. Since we've been doing the Trump report for over a decade, my problem with Trump was that I never believed him to be a principled guy. Certainly not, libertarian or even a constitutionalist. Right? He's a deal maker. It's art of the deal. Let me tell you what, I got a deal to make. Let's make a deal. So they approach him. All right, what's going to make you happy? What are you going to get? We get you the Nobel Peace Prize if you'll be part of the deep state or something. I mean, he is about deal making, but I didn't want a deal maker negotiating away my rights. That's not what the said support for him was for. No. So I'm really, but you have a plan to go to Washington. Tell me about that. What's going to happen? Who's going? What are you trying to do? When is it? Tell me everything.
So I think we have to figure out when we'll know he'll be there. I think he is still open to pressure from his own base. So we saw that with COVID. He was bragging about it at his campaign rallies afterwards. Mm-hmm. And then his own base started booing him, and then he changed course. And so I think he's still, here's to put it in the best light, give him the best benefit of the doubt, this is a repeat of the first administration. He put horrible people around him in the first administration, and he got played like a fiddle. That's the best way to look at it. Giving him the benefit of the doubt that it wasn't intentional, that he was just played. So we see the same thing happening again. So we're going to give him a benefit of a doubt again and presume he still loves his country and still wants to do the right thing, but he's been once again surrounded by deep staters who are playing, and people that have been co-opted by the deep state. I think Kash Patel is compromised. I really do. I think he's been compromised by something, and that they got it over him, and they're holding it over his head and telling him, well, you have to do what we say, otherwise you'll be exposed and taken down. So whatever it is, I don't care what it is. Whether it's coercion, a threat, it'll kill you and your whole family, whether it's bribery that they paid him off, or whether it's blackmail, do what we say or else we're going to expose you. I don't care what it is. He took an oath to support the Constitution. He raised his right hand, just like I did when I served as a paratrooper, just like every other man that served in the military. So I got no F's to give about any excuses or why he's rolling over and giving up his belly and being a bitch. I just don't want to hear it. So he needs to be fired.
Here's
that he still has good intent. We got to pressure him to get rid of these blocks. Otherwise, it'd be just like the first administration, where he had Ray in there the whole damn time. He had Bill Barr in there as Attorney General, who was an obvious block. I knew that out of the gate he was a bad guy. Yet Trump kept him as Attorney General all that time, all those years before that Sessions. He's terrible at picking people. Let's put it bluntly. He really is. So the best way to look at it is that, once again, the strategy of the deep state is surround him with deep staters, give him crappy advice, and then run the clock out on him. Feed his ego. Hey, have him go focus on foreign affairs and trade deals, but then let the rest of them run the clock out on him and not actually go after the deep state. And that's not why we put him there. We put him there to take the deep state down.
What I have for the audience here, I think you can see it. FBI Chief Kash Patel's girlfriend files another $5 million lawsuit over Mossad honeypot allegations of whatever. There's been just a hint of anything asking a question about what, boom, she files suit. Now, these are called SLAPP suits, which is strategic lawsuit against public participation. As any activist knows, when you're hitting a little too close to the bone, boom, they file a suit. And they're strategic. They're made to distract you, shut you up, get what. Well, this is what's going on with Patel's girlfriend, and not somebody stepping up doing it or paying for it. I don't know anything about her, but now I'm going, whoa, man, this is me think he protests too much, So, what is the story behind this? Do you know anything about this?
No, I really don't, and I don't think it's that. I think it's something else. I really do. I think it's something else. But hey, you know what? Like I said, I don't know what it is, but they've got something on him. That's why he's like deer in the headlights, looked terrified in that interview. And Bongino was sweating bullets, looked uncomfortable as hell too. Yeah. So both of them, I believe, and I think Joe Biggs called it on the Alex Jones show the other day. We're all on there, me and Joe Biggs and Enrique Tarrio, and Biggs is like, yeah, they threw 2 files on the desk and said, this one's for you, Bongino, this one's for you, Patel. And here's what we have on you, and if you don't do what we say, we're gonna expose you. So I think he's probably right about that. Do I know for sure? Of course not. Like I said, I don't care. I don't care whether it's coercion, whether it's bribery or blackmail. There's something that they did that flipped these guys from being our supposed saviors to being their bitch, to being bitches for the deep state. And I just don't care anymore. And yeah, this could hurt my ability to get a pardon from President Trump on criticizing his appointees, and through that I'm criticizing his decision making. But my oath to the Constitution is more important than that. My loyalty to this country and to our liberty is more important than that. So I'm not afraid to speak out and give Trump some tough love and say, man, you're messing up. We're not doing what you said you were going to do, and you're letting people in your own administration now become co-opted and become blocks for the deep state. And so their behavior tells me all I need to see. I don't care, even if they say, oh no, we weren't being blackmailed or bribed or coerced. We just didn't think there was anything there, whatever. I don't believe it. I think they're lying, and I think they're lying to the American people, and they're intentionally playing hide the ball, and it needs to stop.
There was so much controversy, questions that need to be asked and answered on Butler, on Epstein, on everything, and the promise was that they were going to get to it.
Look at
Charlie
that.
Kirk.
Yeah.
So
look at the aftermath. You had Tulsi Gabbard, because she's DNI director of National Intelligence, looking into possible foreign connections with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and then apparently Kash Patel blew a gasket. It's like, oh, don't you dare! This is my turf. You shouldn't be intruding in this.
Well, doesn't he work for her?
Right. Once again, thou doth protest too much. Why is he throwing a temper tantrum over her looking into possible connections with a foreign government? We all know who that is. It's the Mossad, right? That's what the suspicion is out there. So she's looking into it. Props to her. I encourage her to keep driving on, keep looking into it. But you shouldn't have the DNI director in a fight with Kash Patel, who is her subordinate underneath her, just like it was back during the Biden administration, or just like Trump 1.0. You had the same problem. You had deep staters in the FBI stonewalling and blocking any progress of anything. In fact, running their own game, running the deep state game during Trump's administration, infiltrating our organizations. They tried to hire Jeremy Brown. He wouldn't do it. But they did successfully hire a high-ranking OathKeeper to become a paid informant. We didn't even know about it till our trial. But that began under Trump. He was recruited under Trump's administration and paid, according to my attorney, $6,000 a month to be a snitch on the OathKeepers. This is all being done under Trump's own nose. So what has changed? As far as I can see, nothing. The FBI is still full of deep staters. They did not purge out the 5,000 FBI agents who were sent across the country to terrorize us, our family and friends, intimidate our witnesses, and then indict and arrest almost anybody we call for a witness was threatened with arrest or was indicted. That's what they did, and they're still in position. They have not purged out those agents. You know who got purged? Only the agents who were caught surveilling Congress got fired. So only when you abuse the rights of members of the Senate, then suddenly Kash Patel will do something about it and fire those agents, like pronto. But all the rest of them, it's crickets.
Yeah, I'm wondering, do you get $6,000 a month? Do you claim that on your taxes? I was just wondering.
I don't know. We'll see. But I was under a gag order. I might still be under a gag order by Judge Mehta, so I won't say this person's name. But God took care of that. The New York Times did an article outing who this person is, and you can go find that from November of 2022 when I was put on trial. So anyway.
Person was that what?
The paid informant inside of OathKeepers.
Oh, okay.
The New York Times outed this person. So.
Wow. OathKeepers, since you started that, God, that was a decade and a half, a long time ago. When did you start that?
2009. Right after Ron Paul's run for presidency. I worked on the Ron Paul campaign in Nevada. I was on the platform committee at the Nevada convention, and we watched the GOP corrupt machine steal the nomination from Ron Paul. So that was my own eyes. We were much better organized. We were going to sweep all the delegates from Nevada. And then suddenly the Nevada chair gets up, a woman, I forget her name, and smacks the gavel and says, we're out of time. We can't use this room any longer. We're going to have to adjourn and reconvene at a later date. We're like,
turned off the lights.
This is a 24-hour casino in Reno, right? So we run down to the front desk, ask Ron Pollard. We're like, hey, can we stay a little bit longer? I said, sure. It's a 24-hour casino. Stay as long as you want. But then we got back to the room, and all the McCain people fled the building to deny us a quorum to proceed. And so they never did reconvene, of course, and they just picked their own electors, the chairs.
You know, we covered that, and we had friends that were there. And as I remember it was such controversy. They took the balloting and they put them in the hotel safety deposit box or something. They secured the ballots, and then there was some doctor or dentist or something that filed suit. Eventually, they got out. Ron Paul won.
Yeah.
And they did. Yeah. Hell no, they did not want that to get out.
That's right. We're going to sweep all the delegates. That's why they had to stop the count, just like the 2020 election. I mean, what's the difference? So the Republican Party is every bit as corrupt, just like the Democrat Party stopped Bernie Sanders by violating their own rules and stole the nomination from him. He's a disgusting communist. That's not the point. The point is, both our major parties are corrupt. And that was a big red pill for me at that moment. Like, okay, so we are FUBAR politically in this country if we can't, actually elect our nominee. I think Ron Paul would have beat Obama because Ron Paul was sincerely anti-war and sincerely anti-corruption. We got tons of walkaway Democrats back then that crossed over and joined the Republican Party because of Ron Paul.
My experience in Arizona was most of the election fraud was under control of the Republicans. But then you get, it's the left side, right side of the pyramid. You get up to the top and say all CNI of all of them. I mean, it's the same thing.
It's the uniparty, exactly. It's the uniparty. So if you're a threat, if you're a threat to the insiders, whether you're Ron Paul or anybody, they're gonna stop you by any way they can. And because I was a lawyer back then, the Ron Paulers were like, hey, can you research? Can we sue them over this? And I went and looked at the case law, and the courts, all the federal courts, have said, oh no, political parties are private institutions. They can do what they want. You can't make them even comply with their own rules. They're free to violate their own rules all they want because they're a private association. So
it's worse. It's worse than that. So you understand, as I've a lot of lawsuits and gone through all this, and I get it. A lot of times, there's state legislation that something that should definitely be a state function, they say, well, this is the law on elections, but this part we leave to the parties. Oh, yeah. And then they just kind of statutorily just give the Republicans or Democrat party, because two-party system, they give it to the parties to enforce whatever statute that they have, and then they got their own rule. They even mention party rules and stuff. I'm going, whoa, whoa, whoa. Since when did we give, legislative status or statutory status over elections to a party? And these are a bunch of the stuff that I challenge and so on. But then the court system is corrupt. And the best that I got out of it was just make them say it. Say it, son of a bitch, say it. So they'll say it. They go, yeah, what are you going to do about it?
Nothing, yeah.
So what are you going to do about it?
Right. So that's why I started OathKeepers to begin with. I realized that, we were FUBAR, effed up beyond all repair when it came to our politics. When it came to everything. The court systems, all three branches, and every level of government is corrupt. That's why I started OathKeepers. I wanted to focus on the men who I believe still have courage and honor in the military and police. A lot of them are prior military anyway. Firefighters. Like I was a paratrooper in the Army and then a volunteer firefighter in Montana. So I focused on the men that I still knew had courage and honor, and I wanted to teach them, become, in other words, basically teach them and turn them into libertarians was my goal, was my strategy. Instead of trying to turn libertarians into warriors, which is really an uphill fight, because a lot of libertarians are very much like, geeks and not very warrior-minded, sadly.
Right.
So, right. I mean, this is something. You remember Boston Tea Party?
Yeah, no, I know Boston.
Kenneth Royce, yeah, good guy. So he wrote Boston's Guns and Courage. That was a really popular book when I was working for Ron Paul's office back in '98 and '99. And him and I actually, we went to a few events together and spoke. And he basically did a retirement speech. I think it was in New Hampshire. We were at an event. And he said, all these years we've been writing these books, trying to get libertarians to become warriors, he said. And he basically threw his hands up and said, I give up. They're all a bunch of von Mises reading, wonks, and they want to sit there and parse the statutes and on all this libertarian philosophy.
How many libertarians can dance on the head of a pin? Yeah.
Right, yeah, but can they? And he said, can you take a rifle and within 2 seconds, shoot a pie plate at 100 yards with your rifle? If you can't do that, the bad guy's not going to take you seriously if you're not a warrior also. He's trying to turn libertarians into warriors. So I got up and spoke after him. He said, I'm going to retire and just write books for boys and how to become men, which is really a laudable goal. I got up afterwards and said, well, I have the exact opposite strategy. I'm reaching out to the warriors who can fight, who are a legitimate physical threat to the bad guys, and I'm trying to turn them into libertarians. And that's really the heart and soul of OathKeepers, to reach out to the military and police, the guys that are warriors and warrior-minded, and teach them more about the Constitution they sort of defend, and even beneath that, the bedrocks of God-given inalienable rights, the philosophy behind the Declaration of Independence, and teach them all this. And then out of that, hopefully, come some kind of a block, some kind of a strategic doubt in the minds of the bad guys of whether or not the orders will be followed. I think I was, in large part successful.
That's why you were targeted.
Right.
Duh.
Yeah. That's why I was put in prison for 18 years. I think Judge Mehta, at my sentencing, I got right back up and got right in his face and said, first thing I said is, I'm a political prisoner like President Trump. My only so-called crime is opposing those who are destroying our country. And I said once again, the plain text of Article 2, my oath to the Constitution will not let me ignore the plain text of Article 2. Those slates were unconstitutional because the changes to the election laws in 2020, using COVID as an excuse, made them unconstitutional. Only the state legislature can change the manner for selecting electors. The exact same argument that John Eastman made and Sidney Powell, all the other attorneys around President Trump, and they're correct. They're right about that. I said that in my sentencing. And of course, the judge got up and he was really pissed when he spoke out. He quoted an interview I'd given from prison, a completely free speech interview where I didn't call for, wasn't advocating any crimes, but just simply saying, if you cannot elect your president, if you can't know that your vote counts in a free, fair election, you no longer live in a constitutional republic. You no longer live in a free country. You're placed in the same position as the founding fathers. You have to go down the same road as them. You're placed in a position where you're not being represented, and you have to resist the illegitimate and tyrannical governments over you. And then he quoted me what I said, and then he said, we can't have that in our democracy. He said, I hereby sentence you to 18 years. And he said, good luck, was his final shot at me. So yeah, I really pissed him off, but you know what? F him. And I'm not for sale, and I wasn't going to back down. And I'm glad I said what I said because it's the truth. I'm just not going to speak a lie.
Do you know who's going to play Stewart Rhodes in the movie? There's going to be, I anticipate, this is what always happens throughout history. As sentiments change, history is revealed, and, the general public opinion on such things or eras, you get, 10, 20 years later, then they start, there's some money to be made in telling the truth in a movie, So here it comes, and, and playing Stewart Rhodes is whoever, Stewart Rhodes. But have you been approached at all by anyone? Yeah, we're going to do a freedom movie. Pinky swear. We need to buy the rights to your story so it can sit up on a shelf for 30 years. But has that ever come up?
Not yet, not like that. And hey, I want to say that I wasn't the only one that stood firm. My co-defendants, Kelly Meggs, Kenny Harrelson, and Jessica Watkins, Caldwell, they all also refused to take a deal. They could have gone home. All they had to do was say that I told them to go in the building. They could have just gone home and done no prison time. Because there were a couple of OathKeepers who did take a deal and pled guilty to seditious conspiracy and then agreed to bear false witness against the rest of us. They got no prison time. They were given probation only by Judge Mehta. So I want to give props to my co-defendants. And by the way, when President Trump pardoned everyone but us 14, those OathKeepers who did take that deal and pled guilty and bitched out, they got a pardon. So that's really strange. So why would they be given a pardon? Oh, yeah. They pled guilty to seditious conspiracy, same charge I was found guilty of in a show trial. And yet they were given a pardon and did no prison time. So they were rewarded. So kind of back to what you were saying earlier, right? I believe that Ron Paul was right. When Ron Paul said, truth is treason in the empire of lies. Those of us who were firm, went to trial, this is OathKeepers and Proud Boys, never bitched out, never gave an inch. We went to trial. We were punished in the end because we were commuted. We're grateful to be out of prison, obviously. But, we have lost those of us who are veterans have lost all our veterans benefits. We can no longer bear arms. I can't carry a gun. I've lost my right to vote here in Texas. And so we're being punished still. I believe we're being punished because we told the truth. There's someone in Trump's circle that wants that false narrative of J6 to live on, and they want to hammer those of us who were completely loyal to our country and refused to take part in their big lie. But they rewarded the guys who did roll over. And so truth is treason, empire lies, but I would also add to that, well, lies are loyalty, an empire of lies. So the ones who bitched out and took the deal and agreed to lie, they got rewarded with a pardon. So
this says more about the system, the government, Trump's presidency, way more than it does you. And I mean, you come out favorable.
There's now 12.
Well, you come out favorable on it, but I'm just saying this is not conducive to credibility for the government, even under Trump. So I'm just, and when you're going to Washington for this, what's the message? Man up.
Messages, man up. Fire Bondi, fire Blanche, fire Patel, and fire Bongino, and put somebody in there more effective. We demand.
Okay, when you go, what are you going to do? You get, you get a government permit. Do you have a stage? Do you get some artwork? You get some guys?
We'll see.
So when do you have a plan for doing this?
Well, like I said, we have to look and see when he's going to be there. There's no point in going there if he's not there. I mean, President Trump can hear you.
He can change his schedule at any moment. I got to go to Russia.
We'll see. We'll see if we can get there when he's there. I think that's the most important thing. And and it's kind of like Horton Hears a Who. Remember the old cartoon, Dr. Seuss? You're trying to get a message, through megaphones. And so we'll just do that outside. I mean, he's expressed his reaction to the crowds before. When there's big, massive crowds out in Freedom Plaza during November and December and January protesting against the stolen election, he'll say, I can hear them outside. And so we want to be there and make as much noise as possible about President Trump, who put you, God saved you in Butler for a reason. I believe that reason was to take down the deep state and take down these satanic pedophiles at the very top. And that's why he's there. That's why God saved him that day. That's why his head didn't explode. He happened to turn by a fraction of an inch just in time to miss that bullet hitting his brain. So he knows that. He said so himself. He said several times, I know God saved me. Well, God saved you to take down the deep state, to purge our country from this parasitic, it's like a patient with cancer, terminal cancer. You were saved so you can come in as a surgeon and cut the cancer out with our help. I'm not saying you do it all by yourself, but you are in the hot seat. You're the commander in chief. You're the president. You have the authority to clean house. But you've appointed people who I'm sure he thought they would do the job. Now they're not. And so it's his responsibility. Going back to his days on The Apprentice, if you're not following through, you got to be fired. If they're not doing their jobs, fire them. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking
what else can we do?
No, I understand. I'm not counting on, me. I've been doing political stuff, activism forever, and right. it is really just a vehicle, a soapbox.
You give it up on politics. I get it.
Well, I never was. It was always about general public opinion. That's what drives everything. So
except that it doesn't. Just look, general public opinion put Trump back in the White House. In fact, put him in the White House 3 times. He's actually elected again in 2020. But he's been put there by general public opinion to do the job. And it's now on his shoulders to do the job. And so what general public opinion can do right now is put pressure on him to do what we sent him there to do. So I think that's worth a shot.
No. And that's why I do what I do. When we did the Levolution, we knew what was going to, that's a long story, but I knew what was going to happen and told everybody, by, February of 2007, I'm going, watch this. Because I knew it was time. It was the beginning of all this. The beginning is nigh. So it was, a lot of people didn't understand, how, I was so confident what was going to happen. But it was spontaneous order, a general public opinion of a vehicle behind an honorable man that had a message, and we had words and heritage that backed up a lot of this stuff. And he would say, if we don't do it now, people won't even understand these words, freedom is slavery. I mean, kind of 1984 crap. And so I looked at it that way. I'm going, it's a general public opinion thing. And the side effect of that and the result of this kind of stuff is what brought about the Trump phenom, and then MAGA and Levolution and all this other stuff. And I went through this with the Perot thing back in the day, and now we got all kinds of different stuff going on in your effort to put pressure on them and your relaunch of OathKeepers. So I see this. It's not that I'm abandoning that mission of general public opinion, but I use politics for it, run for office a bunch, do a bunch of political stuff, having influence on whatever. But it wasn't to get the brass ring. It wasn't, I'm in charge now, I got the clipboard, I got the army of. That wasn't the goal. The goal is for people to understand how they're being screwed and quit supporting the beast that is devouring you. And this is the question that I have in light of all that. Trump comes in and he has his billionaire buddy preference of what? Keep the stock market high, make sure we got the money, glean a little bit of tariff and taxes from the plebes, and we'll kind of we'll fix it for you. The problem is that we keep delegating authority to someone else to fix it for us. We team Jersey Red or whatever, rah for our team, and I'm going, quit doing that. Fortunately, in a federalist type government, we're, individual states. A lot of people around the world learned that during COVID. All of a sudden, this state didn't, that state did, this county didn't, they did. Constitutional sheriffs like kiss my butt. Whoa. The natives don't do what they're told by the great white chief from D.C. kind of thing. Well, the world and a lot of Americans got an understanding of how our system really works. And the beauty of it, if it's followed, but what happens is that, we need a strong guy in charge to go whip ass. At least he's whipping ass on somebody. And so that's what they default to, a war. We just need another war in Venezuela, in Iran, in China. So my point is that Trump has his own bias and preference for something. I'm thinking that he's looking at the petrodollar. He's looking at the dollar dominant. He's looking at holding it off at least till one more election cycle or till after he's done. Or
that's not why we elected him. Look, let me just say that.
They don't care. That's my point. He's not principled. He was there to do what he wanted to do, and make America great again was by his definition. Now, of course, ours would be, we want to make it great again, freedom for the people and defense of individual rights, and we're done. That's not his. There's some metric or scorecard or value of the dollar, or the stock market, or something else that he's doing, and they're using that to trade off or blackmail or get or got something. There's a bunch of negotiation and horse trade, art of the deal behind it, and our rights are on the table. My rights are not on the table. I don't care what you do because I don't care, and it doesn't matter. But during the election process and having influence on midterms, as if you can have influence, and your experience with the elections and election law and what they're doing, it's not an ounce of difference now than it is then. We got Israel lobbying for mail-in ballots. I'm just going, what the shit? This is the best that I think that you could do when you do this, you go there, is that you make them say it. Say it! But
then so be it. So let me say this. So yes, Ron Paul was a continuation. Look, the wave has always been there. It's like the other day Trump has said, he created the MAGA movement. He defines what it is. That's just not true. The MAGA movement is nothing but a continuation of the Barry Goldwater movement, the Ross Perot movement, the Ron Paul movement, the Tea Party movement. All of those were just, earlier buildups of the same rising of the tide of awareness, like you said. So Ron Paul's campaign was successful. It brought to the fore the issues of the Federal Reserve, of our monetary policy. Like we were together. That's why I saw you again, right? After I got out of prison, we saw each other at the Ron Paul's 90th birthday party. And a lot of the speakers said this, and we said this in private conversation, that Ron Paul was successful in changing the climate, changing the awareness of the American people. And that created the wave that Trump jumped on like a surfer and surfed into the White House. It's entirely from us. He didn't create that wave. He's just a really skillful wave surfer. He surfed the discontent of working class Americans and increasing awareness of what's going on. That we have an evil cabal over not just us, but the entire earth of evil elites at the very top who look at the rest of the people of the world as cattle. And their plan for us is Terminator land. You know, they want to depopulate the planet and have a big party for themselves and get rid of the rest of us. And I think Catherine Austin Fitts is right about that. She blew the whistle on that back in 2020. She said this is a pandemic and this is part of their depopulation culling. But, you know, they don't need us anymore. The elites needed people as cheap labor, but now they don't need you because they're looking at the future of AI and robotics. They don't need you at all. You're surplus. So they just want to kill us off. I think that's
you're a useless eater.
Yeah. So that's the reality, and that's the harsh reality. That's why you're not going to be allowed, Ernie. I've told you this before. They're not going to let you just go to some gulch and live your life alone in seclusion somewhere. They're going to come after you too. So you can't just hide. You can't just go and just separate. I'm going to separate myself. That's part of the solution. Part of the solution, I believe, is in two parts. From the bottom up, we have to become independent. We do have to have microeconomies and strong local communities that can engage in mutual aid and mutual commerce staying out of the beast system. That's absolutely essential across the country. The stronger we are, the more able we are to weather their crap, because they're going to do an economic collapse. It's going to collapse eventually. We all know this, but it's going to collapse, most likely when they decide to collapse it for their purposes. Just like with terror attacks and anything else they're going to throw at us. We need to get strong at the local level. That's why I'm going to be focusing on local level. While I'm urging President Trump to do his duty at the very top, I think we have a responsibility to hold his feet to the fire on his promises. But at the same time, don't put all your eggs in that one basket. Also at the same time, get as strong as you can in the local community level, your neighborhood, your churches, your towns and counties. And that's why part of what I'll be doing is what I'm going to call the Strong County Project, focused on that exactly, becoming as strong as possible. We have to say no, absolute hard no to digital ID and taking their crap, taking their Chinese style social credit scores that they have planned for us. Reject Peter Thiel's, whatever's going on with Peter Thiel infiltrating the White House through J.D. Vance is bad for us. It's going to be more technocracy, more transhumanist crap, and more Terminator land. So we have to be ready for that. They're going to do it at some point. They're going to pull crap on us, another false flag. Terror attacks, I think, are very likely. It's something that has been floating around for quite a long time now. Is that Al Qaeda is bragging about how they're going to do terror attacks inside the United States. And whether you believe that's by design by the CIA and Mossad, or whether you believe that's actually organic because we have a lot of friggin' terrorists administrating our country, in the end, what's the difference? They'll use that as their excuse to say, okay, mass terror attacks happen, jihadis running around killing school kids. If you want to stop that, Americans, you got to sign on to Peter Thiel's dream of total information awareness, gate recognition, iris recognition, Chinese social credit score, tracking every move you make. And and track them all down, track all the terrorists down, or all the illegal aliens. We also have to have electronic ID, ID and banking. So electronic dollar, everything's tracked. And a lot of people, just like we saw after 9/11, a lot of conservatives were cheerleaders for anything Bush wanted to do in the name of fighting the war on terror. The creation of DHS, great concentration of power in the executive branch, completely ridiculous claims of authority to use, lethal force and military rules, military jurisdiction on American citizens, all kinds of crap that I protested against and wrote against when I was a student at Yale Law School. All that was being cheered by conservatives because they're like, well, what do you want? You want mushroom clouds over U.S. cities? That's what they would tell me. I'm like, hey, this is unconstitutional. Well, Stewart, you want mushroom clouds over U.S. cities? So they all bought it hook, line, and sinker because it's all about getting the bad guys. I think the same play will be set up pretty soon against us, terror attacks in the United States, and they'll use that same crap to say, okay, only way to stop this now is we got to go way beyond the Patriot Act. We have to have total information awareness to who everybody is. Everyone's tracked 24/7. That's what they're going to try to usher in. And anyone can be cut off from their bank account. That's why I'm so pissed off at Pam Bondi. Another reason why she needs to go is right after Charlie Kirk gets assassinated, she takes that and says, this is why we have to have hate speech laws in this country. The anti-Semitism on our college campuses is unacceptable. And that's hate speech is not free speech. So she wants us to go down the same road as the UK, where people are being thrown in prison for their speech. So we have to have a hard no against that. That's one more reason why she should be fired. So that's so my plan is to pressure Trump to do his damn job, to expose the bad guys and take them down, If you don't take him down during his administration, when the next Democrat comes in, it will be exponentially worse. You don't like what's going on as a libertarian, you don't like what's going on under Trump. Imagine what it's like under, Mondami or whoever becomes the next president under the left. It'll be exponentially worse because all those FBI agents in the FBI are still there. All their confidential human sources out there that have not been exposed. That's one more thing I want to see done. I want to see all the FBI agents fired that persecuted all of us. And I want to see every confidential human source that took money from the FBI to infiltrate liberty people and conservatives. I want them exposed and their names broadcast, and their face and their name should be on billboards in their local community to let everyone know who they are so they know who to avoid. That's a friggin' snitch. So that should be done to clean out the deep state. If you don't do that, it's not going to happen. When they come back into power, all those FBI agents will be glad to go right back to the same job of persecuting you, except now they'll know, because Trump has shown them that there's no downside to obeying unconstitutional orders. They can persecute you all they want, and they'll never have to worry about being fired, because if Trump didn't do it, what future president from the political right is ever going to actually do it? Probably nobody. And I don't think J.D. Vance will do it either. No. So there you are. So that's my strategy: is bottom up, strong county project, neighborhood watches with teeth, armed neighborhood watches, strong church security teams, advocating every American should be a prepper. Every American should start growing his own food. Move the hell out of the big cities, people. Get to the country and become resilient and strong all you can. And then be ready to have mutual aid, mutual defense. But at the same time, while he's still sitting in the chair, we got 3 more years of Trump, why not put some pressure on him to do his job? Why not? And while we're at it, we're educating people. At the very worst, like you said, make them say it. And then we'll know where we really are at the end.
When we talked, we were at Ron Paul's event, and we had the time, a lot of us that were staying at one of the houses there, you came over, and we got to talk for hours.
It was a good chat, yeah.
And it was, and I was really trying to goad Stewart into, come on, man, when's the ARs come out? We got to go, just got to get the truth out and so on. So he really held firm on, we're going to use peaceful political means. But I mean, you got to be ready when they start,
Sure.
coming after you.
Like I said in my interview from prison, you're on the same path as the founding fathers. We've been giving a brief reprieve to get ready. And if we can get President Trump to do his job, it's our last chance to do this through the system, to do it with a relatively peaceful correction of course, relatively peaceful surgery to cut out the cancer can be done now with him as commander-in-chief. If I were able to trade places with him for 2 months, I'd have it done. Mass declassification exposure of all the dirt on all these politicians and judges, all the CEOs, everyone on Wall Street, all of them, all the bankers, expose them all so the American people know the reality of how corrupt and evil these people really are. How many of them are pedophiles? How many have taken money from communist China or other governments? How many of, all the grift? Why did they all become millionaires? Because they all corrupt. So Doge Congress, that's what should have been done. So do that. If we did that, you might still have to have a fight, because you still have judges saying, oh, no matter what you say, we're not going to step down. Well, then you have to remove them from office. And that's what you have to do under the Insurrection Act. As commander-in-chief, you do what is necessary to protect the American people. And if you don't want to argue that as being somehow legal, the bad guys are going to say, well, even that's illegal. You can't take us down. Then we resort back to the Declaration of Independence. Any form of government becomes destructive of these ends. It is the right and the duty of the people to alter or abolish it. But if you did that, you'd have, Trump, if he was actually taking the task to him, he's commander-in-chief over the armed forces. If they know who all the pedophiles are, and their first task is go arrest the pedophiles, they're going to do that. They're going to follow his orders, go arrest the pedophiles, and F the judges, expose them too, go arrest them. So however you want to characterize that, you want to call it a revolution, what do you want to call it? I would call it a counter coup. But that is going to be most peaceful if it's done when he's commander-in-chief, if he's leading the way, which he has the full authority to do and responsibility to do. All I'm saying is, let's get it done while he's in the office.
And he's not, because there's some other goal that he has, and I don't understand it.
Then if that's the case, then he has pulled a fast one on us, and he's not honoring his oath. He was sworn in and took the same oath we did. In fact, his oath's even more stringent. He's responsible as the President of the United States to enforce the laws of the Union. He's responsible to carry the laws of the Union out. And that's the supreme law of the land, the U.S. Constitution.
Okay, this is one thing that from our conversation, I was, there's got to be something we can do, that in line with my methods, which is general public opinion. You got a soapbox, you take advantage of the opportunity to whatever, you're an opportunist, whatever. That's where I dealt, because it makes it a lot easier and cheaper. You ride a wave that's already there. I'm sitting out waiting for the tsunami, and I'll ride it all the way to the Mississippi from the east or west coast. I mean, we'll get some. But I'm like, what would it be? And then the last time you came on, while you were on air, I'm looking at the domain now, thetruthwillsetthemfree.com. The reason I got that is the artwork that I had the guys do. It'd be children silhouetted, holding hands. Set who free? The children. And you were talking about full disclosure. So I need, when you do this, let me finish. When you do this, and you go, there needs to be a focus. We need full disclosure. The truth will set us free, them free. What I'm going, who? Who's this for? It's children are literally being raped, and these guys are getting away with it, and they're using that to control them. And I'm going, well, the truth will set them free. I mean, so as you get further and closer along to this.
And that came out of our conversation at the beach house after Ron Paul's birthday.
Yeah. And
I quoted the Bible. The Bible says the truth will set us free. I was talking to you about the necessity of mass declassification and exposure. That is
that's my point. But when we talked last, when you came on the show, I'm going, the truth will set us free, us kind of what I need something that I can work with, something catchy, something that is emotive, for the children. Well, the truth will set them free, and the logo be a bunch of, small children. I'm going,
declassify now.
Yeah. So I'm ready. And that's why I wanted to have you on now when you talked about going there and doing that. I'm going, all right, I don't sit on my hands. I'm an old man. I got time, and I pay my $1.99 for the first year and $20 for the next year, the domain or whatever the hell, until they take it away from me. But it's I go, all right, I'm ready.
Yeah.
For what?
So that's the message. The message is let's focus on the real bad guys rather than focusing on each other, divide and conquer, or focus on all the crap they're trying to distract not just Trump, but the American people with, whether tariffs or no tariffs, H-1B visas or no H-1B visas, which I'm opposed to, by the way. But all of that is a sideshow compared to what they're getting away with. That's why the Epstein files is the most massive mistake that Trump is making. He's driving a wedge inside of his own base. You've got a large percentage of his own base knows there's something there because it's obviously real. Epstein was working for Mossad and the CIA. His job was to snare and entrap and blackmail political elites, powerful politicians and political elites all over the world. And so I'm sure what's being done now is President Trump is being told that you can't expose all that because it'll crash the stock market, it'll crash governments around the world, it'll destroy confidence in our institutions. I'm sure it's what he's being told. But you know what? They don't deserve our respect. The institutions don't deserve our respect and our trust. And those evil pedophiles have to be taken down because they are raping children still to this day. 300,000 missing children in this country. Where are they all at? They're being raped by pedophiles, if they're still alive. So we have to take this down. And that's the fastest way is through his absolute power as commander-in-chief to declassify and expose. No one can stop him. He has to do it. I'm sure he's being told not to. We have to pressure him. We, the people, have to pressure him to do it. That's a big message, really, for this rally in D.C. is President Trump, fight the deep state, take them down, mass declassification and exposure. But in order to also be able to prosecute them once you take them down, you need an FBI director and attorney general that's also on board as a patriot. So purge out the weenies around you, the bad actors around you, the blocks, and get it done. Then do the mass declassification exposure and start prosecuting and arresting them. Hire special prosecutors, whatever you have to do. But you have to have people on your team that are fighters. So that's the message to him. Nothing else he's doing is more important than that. And that's what we expect. And if he doesn't do that, they are going to lose the midterms. I predict right now the Republican Party will lose the midterms because he is one of the problems.
Because the system needs him to. That's why.
Well, he's been endorsing horrible candidates all over the country. I talked to Chris and Megan Kelly up there in Michigan, and Trump's endorsing terrible candidates there. He's endorsed horrible candidates here in Texas. I mean, he just hasn't learned anything after his first term. He's continuing to do the same thing, make deals with the party and endorse scumbags like Lindsey Graham. And so that alone is going to cost him the midterms most likely.
No, Lindsey Graham. There's some horse trading going on there. We've been doing the Trump report since the escalator, in 15. And we just finished it this morning in the process and putting it up now. And there was a lot of things that, come up in that. But the thing that's most interesting is Dr. Frank is big Trump supporter. Not so much anymore. And for him to start breaking, whoa, damn, he goes, yeah, I'm starting to become an Ernie. Whoa, where'd that come from? And it's based on a lot of this stuff. There were promises made. And I would hammer on him in the first administration. I'm going, look, he promised to this, he didn't do it. I could just do your job. Sign the thing, do the thing, do the thing. But not doing the thing. Got people that'll, even if you wanted to do it, they're not going to do it for you anyway. So he goes, they wouldn't do it anyway. You shouldn't cycle. Do his job, sign the freaking paper. So it makes you wonder how much a part of it he is, how much he's influenced by it, or what is his real goal he's negotiating our rights away for. And I know that they're threatening him with the economy.
In the end, I don't care. Like I said, that's why.
Don't care. Yeah, doesn't matter. I don't care.
Yeah, bring it down. I would rather have our economy crash, which is, like I said, they'll crash it when they're ready anyway.
It's going to happen anyway.
It's going to happen anyway. Let's have it happen while Trump's in office so that we can at least purge out the bad guys who are at the root of the problem. I'm willing to go through another Great Depression and poverty and all the turmoil and danger of that to get rid of these pedophile elites, these demonic people that are going to kill us. If we allow them to stay in power, they're going to create Terminator land. We're coming to a situation. Look at OathKeepers again.
Yeah, and you'll own nothing. And here's your happy shot.
Well, and you'll own nothing, and there'll be no longer be human police officers or human military for us to try to influence to say no. Instead, there'll be robots. You'll have some Terminator drone flying over you or walking up to your door and kicking the door down and take you away. There's not going to be any human beings in charge of making those decisions. And that's what they want. There'll be automatic, you got automatic cars on the street, there'll be automatic helicopters, attack helicopters and planes and drones in the sky. It's like, go watch the Terminator show again, Terminator movie. That's what it'll be like. But with people like Peter Thiel pushing them and Bill Gates pushing the buttons about who's going to be killed, from space.
When George Lucas got out of film school, the first thing that he did was a sci-fi movie with, what was the actor's name? But it was called THX 1138. And here, I'll show you the image from it. If you've ever seen this, what's that actor's name? Robert Duvall. So Robert Duvall, younger Robert Duvall, this was an interesting dystopian future thing. And the police enforcement were robots.
Yeah.
With shock sticks and everything.
That's their
yeah. I think that this is where it's going. And I remember there was an AI that they went to, and he goes into the booth. It was like a phone booth. Yeah, I'm not feeling really good today. I was going, oh, well, be calm and do this and do that, and here's your 2 pills, okay? So it was just so many of these, Soma from Brave New World, 1984, Fahrenheit 451, THX 1138. It's like a Venn diagram, and we're in the middle of all of it. And it's happening right now. Yeah. Minority Report. Which they're doing now. That's Palantir, And Terminator, we got, so you're going to make an Optimus robot, do you make him really tall and scary? Are you a little bit shorter? Well, they can just stab you just as well in the night, and iRobot, the Will Smith one, that was scary. So this is where we're going. It's almost like we're being programmed. It's predictive programming.
They're letting you know where they're taking us. And this is the thing. How many of these movies do you have to watch before you catch a clue? Whatever we're going to do, let's put it this way. We're running out of time. It's nut cutting time. Whatever we, the people, are going to do to throw off the chains, we have to do it now. You can't wait until they put in place Terminator land. That's the problem. We're the frog in the pot. That's why, back again, Arnie, you can't just retreat onto your homestead and ignore this. This is coming your way. We can't wait till the Terminator drones are flying over your house and then they knock on your door and there's a robot saying, do not resist, like in friggin', what was that one, RoboCop, right? So you got this robot saying, do not resist, stop resisting, and then it lights you up. That's your future. They're going to come drag you out of your house. I don't care how good your homestead is, how much gold you got, how much food storage. None of that's going to matter. That's going to get you. So we have to unite, and we got to take care of it now. And we should do it while President Trump's still in office.
I don't want to be misunderstood. What our goal is. Having the knowledge that I do and the experience and going up against these guys, they, them, those. There's people that just want to be left alone. Those who won't leave them alone. That's how I know who the bad guys are. They won't leave me alone to pursue my happiness, protect my life, liberty, property, the proper rule of government, all that. Since they won't, okay, how do you deal with it? Well, they're going to keep doing this until they cannot keep doing it.
Right.
Well, how do you do that? The biggest thing is that
they're stopped. Right.
Well, this is the one thing that the world kind of looks at the United States and they go, God, man, they got that Stewart Rhodes guy, and he's all like gunny and military and police against the New World Order and kind of, whatever. And they got guns. America's full of guns. There's all these kind of guns. Well, we have the Arizona Project, which is a bunch of young kids from around the world come to Arizona every year, and I'll be interviewing them. Again, they got another batch of 6 we'll be doing here within the week. And I met them last night, and every time they come, they all come to me and they go, hey, man, you got to take them shooting. So I go up to Ben Avery up there, and we line them up, and they put all the stuff on their Facebook. And one little girl from Nepal, they wouldn't let her back in the country until she took that picture down. I mean, that kind of crap. So, but they're proud. Ooh, guns, America. Well, they look at America, it's not about the gun. When they actually, especially a small young woman, fire, I can project my will over there, all of a sudden, cult made men and women equal kind of thing. Well, they feel that. That is what the problem is. It's not so much the guns as it is the emotion and the confidence, especially when you got competence in it, that you can defend your life against bad guys, and whether they got a badge or not. That mindset is what they're afraid of. And this is why they got to disarm. It's always wherever the, British royalty's on the money. It's UK, South Africa, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, whatever. I mean, they're disarmed now after COVID and all this lockdown stuff, and you have to and you can't and you're not allowed and you gotta. All of a sudden they're going, well, Americans, maybe they got something going on there, And they come here. A lot of the people that are freedom oriented or feel oppressed, they understand the gun issue more, and it's not as much about taking up arms against M16s and F16s as Biden would say. Well, we got F16s, we'll whip your ass. It's the mindset that we do have the ability, and there's like more than enough, there's like hundreds of millions of guns in this country, and that's not going away. So it's the ability. When we do occupy the land, I'm like, you have to insulate yourself from what's coming. You got to be more self-sufficient. You got to have something to protect and protect it. You got to be out and sustaining your own life with your own sourced water. You're growing your own food. You're educating your own kids. You're creating a community of like-minded people out there. You're not going to fix it, Ernie, when they come. I'm going to be a hell of a lot better and have a couple of minutes to decide. I can tell you that.
That's what I said a little while ago. I said, my plan is to do both. Prepare to become as resilient and insulated and separate from the beast system as you possibly can, because then you'll be in a much stronger position no matter what happens. This is a no-brainer. So I can agree with you 100% on that. But at the same time, that's not the whole of the answer, because eventually when they create Terminator land and they have all their autonomous drones and robots coming to get you, and there's no longer any military, police, humans to influence that come join our side, that's when resistance will be much more difficult. So what I'm saying is do both very quickly. Let's get resilient and strong. Let's also expose them and take them down now, if we can, during the Trump administration.
I'm trying to help. You know,
yes,
you do you, I do me, but I'm telling you,
help.
I'm in a race. I'm going as fast as I can. I got my 18 acres out in the middle of, and Don and I are going to, yesterday I bought a second shipping container, got another building going in, building up, building infrastructure, so I can be insulated, so I can provide, you know, for my family and people that I support, that I, you know, get an extra week, you know, to, you know, get your mind right. Because when you're in fight or flight, and God forbid, you know, it'll start with a food thing. It's always a food thing, a supply chain kind of whatever. They did that test during COVID. You know, you're looking at this and you're going, man, what do I need to do? Well, I got to do it. Then I can start thinking about whatever, but I'm getting domains, having Stewart Rhodes come on, talking about the issues, making sure that, you know, there's a lot of responsibilities that we have as men. You know, they even say that. You know, I'm going to start saying that more. You know, I mean, you know, they're fine. Women got, you know, lots of capabilities and whatever, but, you know, you need the stronger of the species to protect that which we love. That is our job.
That's right.
You know, and I am just, the woman be the queen of the freaking household, but I don't want to overrun with the king's soldiers. I mean, you know, it's you know, we have responsibilities as men to provide protection for our family. Yeah. And that is being stripped out, but it's starting to resurrect itself, and it's starting to come back, and people are starting to recognize this role. And I think women are going to start counting on men to be men, or the best of them aren't going to, you know, be the little birdie in their nest they built for them, because you don't have a nest and you're not protecting it. So traditional values that is just from the species of how best to propagate and have children, and, you know, them grow up to have children, you know, that is what's coming back, because we understand how it works. And this, whatever the hell this stuff is not working. And you thought it was getting pushed back, and then you get Mondami elected mayor of New York. You got a communist socialist from her parents' basement running Seattle now. You got. So I'm of the opinion that the economy is going to go. It's going to become a food thing.
Sure. From
the ashes, Freedom's Phoenix. That was the whole point of that logo and our effort with freedomsphoenix.com. The point is to help explain and understand and have your story and a bunch of others and the economics and the technology and what's happening be available for us to make use of. Well, AI can be a double-edged sword. We talked about that last night too. The Students for Liberty gave a presentation, and I'm going, okay, they're using AI. I goes, is that a double-edged sword? Are the activists going to make use of it and do some whip ass? Or is it coming out? Well, they're going to use it anyway. We might as well, beat them over the head with it. But, I don't see this fixing itself. It's going to be fixed by what Klaus Schwab said. It's going to be a great reset. Well, I'm looking for a greater reset. And we have options and alternatives to what reset they're going to supply us, because they're going to have one, I guarantee it.
Yeah, I agree completely, Ernie. I don't know why do you think I'm not agreeing with you? I agree 100%. In fact, I would take it even further. Not only do you need to have your gulch where you can be insulated and ride it out, but going back to the idea of men doing their job, the real mission, the real purpose of men, as the founders laid out, is to be not just protectors of your own home, but your broader community. You are supposed to be the militia. That means every able-bodied man in your county, and that's what I'm going to focus on. It's county by county. So I'm calling it the Strong County Project. We'll do the best we can to, and I'll use the already, well-documented intent of Al Qaeda to do October 7 style or Mumbai style terror attacks. So Al Qaeda's bragging right now that they have terror cells in the United States. They're going to do that. I'll use that because I do believe it's coming. And whether you believe it's by design or Al Qaeda wanting to do that, doesn't matter. In the end, it's going to happen. And what I think is going to happen is out of that will come that false choice. Well, if you don't want that, American people, you got to adopt Terminator land from Peter Thiel. So our answer must be that the men of the counties have got to get off their ass. That means you and your neighbors coming together in your county now and use that as your rationale. We're getting ready for what we know is coming. We're going to have October 7th style terror attacks. Let's get together, men, and focus on that one issue, that one terror threat that is coming. It's a no-brainer. And you can add on to that for the guys that are awake enough to understand it. All the military-aged males from China, by the tens of thousands, who are, come on, guys, they're PLA troops. They're People's Liberation Army Chinese troops. They're going to also go active and start destroying our infrastructure. Back to your point, it won't just be an economic collapse; it'll be a perfect storm. They'll be blowing substations and taking down your grid. So all of that will be part of the mass destruction of America from the inside out. And then the answer is going to be Peter Thiel's, Palantir coming over and saving us all with mass surveillance and everything else. So
Mandrill.
right. So use the terror threat, which is very real. It is going to happen. Use that right now. I mean, you just had General Flynn on Alex Jones the other day saying the same thing. He thinks within 90 days we're going to see terror attacks. So why not use that right now and say, men of every county, focus on this threat, be protectors, come together as the founders intended, all of you together in your county. Now, if you don't want to use the nasty word militia, call yourself a posse in waiting or whatever. I think we should go ahead and say we are a militia in waiting.
Yeah, I wouldn't hide it.
Yeah, we don't hide it. We're a militia and waiting for President Trump to call us up, or we can be called up by the sheriff. But in the end, when the crap hits the fan, we're going to put a stop to it. And
we have experience here in Arizona with the border thing was a big deal. They call it Arizona Rangers or something, and they actually changed law in Arizona. And we've been going through this in the 90s. They have what they call the Adjutant General, which is a kind of the liaison from the state to the National Guard, the military, whatever. Right. And they were trying to change, and we caught them, and we were in a legislative hearing, and the Adjutant General got up from the audience and ran to the bench, the dais, whatever the legislators sit behind, went over to the chairman. Oh, we're pulling that bill. That shit just happened. What the bill was is that they were trying to take the unorganized militia of the men in Arizona and put them under the control of the National Guard. And they're saying, you do what we say now. And I'm going, whoa, 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 whoa. That was just the people. That was at best the government. So then they created this ranger thing that the governor kind of sanctioned. You can go down and report crossings to the Border Patrol that don't do anything about it. So
some of those guys were in OathKeepers. There were some guys who were Arizona Rangers in my organization.
Yeah, no, I've known a lot of the guys, but the thing is that it's in law and our state constitution. This is what we did in the mid-'90s. I filed an initiative. This is where Second Amendment is for everyone came from. The safe. Are you a safe gun owner? Are you an unsafe legislator? The initial initiative was unrestricted concealed carry, which we got. Well, what happened then is I'm going to do this, and it says all able-bodied men between the ages of 17 and 40, whatever, 55 or something, are in the unorganized militia in Arizona. That's our Constitution then. We changed. We did an initiative that said all willing, able-bodied men and women. We just added willing and women. Well, they didn't know it was already there. Crazy Ernie. I mean, it went on for a week in all the media how that Crazy Ernie got. Then finally, I just let it go, let it simmer. I'm good about letting it go. So then I started doing all the talk shows, and I get on and I go, well, golly shucka gee willikers. We just didn't want them to be slaves and make it willing, and we didn't want to leave the women out. I mean, it's already there. And they're like, damn it, I hate these libertarians, man. They're always screwing with us. So, but it outed them. They didn't know it was there. And then they started this legislature trying to get that militia, because it's general public opinion. People were starting to learn about it. So then they wanted to have it under control of the federal government or National Guard or the governor or some crap like that. So we outed that and show what was going on there. So we see their intent. I've been doing this long enough. I was just wanted them to say it. I wanted to see what their intent was. Their intent is total control and domination. Sure. That's their intent.
And that's why, and let me add to that. So that's exactly why no governor, no state legislature, so what you have in your Arizona Constitution is very similar to what's in every constitution in the state of the union. defines the militia as the people trained to arms. Then you have militia statutes at the federal level. Here's what happened at the federal level. There have been militia statutes since the very beginning to provide for calling forth the militia into federal service for three purposes. One, to repel invasions. Second, to execute the laws of the Union. And the third, to suppress insurrections. So the founders' design and our history was that every state, as in every colony before that, had their own militias. They had a robust militia system. That was what the founders expected, that your militia would be you and your neighbors in your counties who could be called up by the governor of your state to be used for anything in your state, natural disasters, law enforcement, whatever, but only can be called into federal service for three purposes. This is Article 1, Section 8. Congress is given the power to provide for calling forth the militia for those three purposes: repel invasions, suppress insurrections, execute the laws of the Union. And they did from the very beginning militia statutes. Those are still in effect. The current militia statutes of the federal government, what they did though is 1916 or something like that. They passed what they call the Dick Act, pretty aptly named actually, because what it did is it bifurcated the militia. It said, yes, the militia is every man, every able-bodied man in America from 17 to 45, as they always had said, and us veterans until age 64 because of our prior training experience. That's consistent from the very beginning of the founding. But this Dick Act said the organized militia is the National Guard. And anyone who's not in the organized militia is the unorganized militia. That's where that language came from. Then what happened is all the states did what we call lockstep in legal parlance. They all adopted the same language. They bifurcated their militias also into the National Guard as the organized militia, and then everybody else is the unorganized militia, which is really an oxymoron. What's the point of a pool of men in your community that's not organized?
I'd rather be unorganized, not part of their command structure anyway. Screw them.
Well, here's the thing. You are part of their command structure right now. Under federal statute, President Trump could call forth the militia, including both parts, the organized and unorganized, into federal service right now. That could be done to you right now. Of course, you're not prior military, so you're.
I'm glad that you're doing the county thing, because this was our experience in the mid '90s. They did this regional government. It's a long story. They're trying to bring legislative power and kind of little fiefdoms down to the county, so they can give every socialist a job. I mean, that kind of thing. So we were in opposition to that. We kind of stopped it. It went, later they didn't even record that they ever even had that election. We had to go find the documents in the archive of some library in Mesa. I paid a guy to go find it for me. And I go, I'm not crazy. I remember when they tried to do this. Well, what happened was, we could see that they, them, those were doing it. This League of Cities and Towns, this county, the WEF, World Economic Forum, everything, county. And we saw it manifest itself during COVID. It was the county guys. It's a county health inspector, the county clipboard of, the zoning guy, the building permit. You're not allowed to do the business where it's county. County. But this is where Sheriff Richard Mack was coming from, constitutional sheriffs. He's going, you need, because it's the highest ranking law enforcement official in any county, is not some police chief or this guy or some fed or whatever. It's the sheriff, and they're elected. So you have the highest law enforcement is an elected individual. Well, they'd love to change that too. So This is where they were trying to shut down a lot of different businesses, and people go, no, I'm not. In rural counties here in Arizona, it was up to the sheriff enforcing. I'm not doing it. Bite me. You get somebody else to do it. So This is, I think, the way to go is the county level, because the counties are considered a political subdivision of the state to enforce a lot of state stuff and everything. So it's kind of statey, locally, county, whatever the hell, but it's a good structure. Now, like Florida has, I think it's like 67 counties. I used to live in Florida. Damn. And all these little sheriff, got their own little whatever. And you get Tri-County, you get this, but they're counties. In Arizona, pretty good sized state, it only has, I think, 14 to 17. It's in the mid-teens. And this is, Maricopa County is the largest physical, geographical landmass county in the country. It's big. I'm way out in it'd take me, 2.5 hours to drive across the county. So this is I think the jurisdiction that you'd be the most successful at I think it's already got a structure. It already has a political hierarchy. You got the supervisors or commissioners or however you do it. You have the sheriff. You got the county attorneys, which is what Soros was all about, getting control of, and the judges and so on. So the county is really where the rubber meets the road on just about everything. So if you do it, not state, not federal, not even municipality, county. So I vote county. So if you're doing a county thing, I think you're on it.
Agreed.
I mean,
but going back to my point is yes, and so but it's also about educating the people about what should be. The founders wanted us to be organized in county militias down at the county level across the country, because that, like it says in the Second Amendment, is what they consider necessary for the security of a free state. Necessary. You can't, it's not like an option. You're not going to be free or safe without it. And I can tell you this from after doing all the hurricane disaster relief we've done, and I was just down in the Texas flood after the big flood down there in Texas Hill Country. Every natural disaster overwhelms local law enforcement, local fire, search and rescue. You never have enough men. And one thing that always happens is the bad guys come out of the woodwork, the meth heads or whatever, and start looting. So that just lets you know that. And so when there's terror attacks, for example, when Al-Qaeda springs up, 6 to 8 man or even dozen man cells of heavily armed terrorists, they're going to very quickly overwhelm your local law enforcement. And so just like a hurricane will overwhelm local law enforcement, and you and your neighbors will have to take care of business yourself to suppress looters and also do mutual aid and mutual rescue, all that's a reality. And we've seen it over
but the reality is that the government gets FEMA in there with M16s and saying, you're not going to rescue people with those 600 bass boats in Katrina. And they're not going to Texas to say...
It wasn't FEMA. That was the local hostile police chief and mayor that were anti-gun. That's what happened in FEMA. So, and that's the dark side, is that law enforcement, because they're a version of standing army, are more likely to go along with orders to violate your rights to save their job. And we saw this during Katrina. We also saw it during COVID, right? So there were some cops that said no, but there were a lot that said yes, right? Across the country.
I interviewed a guy in the Texas flood that was a contractor. I had him on the show. God, this is just, right after it happened. And he was a contractor. He wanted to help his neighbors. He had heavy equipment. He went down, they were on the rivers or fishing spot, favorite of whatever they wanted to go, fix it, because he was of the mind, he's going, look, they're going to do what they did in Hawaii. They're going to have this big giant fire and whatever, and, Palisades, and now it belongs to the new rich guy developer. It's not yours now, and you can't get a permit to rebuild. And he goes, they're going to do the same thing down there, say that you're not, and it's going to become somebody else's something. And he goes, nope. We're going to go down, clean it up, fix it, get it taken care of. And they were pissed off that he was doing it. He was ruffling somebody else's plan. Yeah. So when you have the militia, you have the people, you have the help coming to do, good Samaritan, good neighbor, I'm just a neighbor, I want a community help. And they're like trying to discourage you every way they can. And you go, why?
We saw that too. We had a Navy diver, for example, a rescue diver, well-trained. He went down there and went into Kerrville to their command center and said, I'm a Navy diver. I want to come in and help. And the two women who were running the desk turned him away and said, we don't need you here. And so we ended up, that same Navy diver, just on his own, got connected through Doc Pete Chambers, who's now running for governor here in Texas, hooked up with another team of divers, and they just went and did it. So his mistake was even trying to coordinate with the command post. And
I already learned that lesson.
So I never do. I never ask permission to help my neighbors. And so when we responded to the flood, I teamed up with Doc Pete Chambers and his guys, and we just joined in with their team. And then later we ran our own teams. We went out there with volunteers, with his blessing, and kept doing the work. Never in all the 14 hurricane relief missions that I've been part of with OathKeepers, not one time do we ever ask permission from any official. And the last person we ever want to see is FEMA. But lucky for us, FEMA is never at the front of the spear anyway. They're never out there in the mud rescuing people. They only show up later with a clipboard and make things worse after like 2 weeks or so go on.
Well, in Katrina, who was turning away all the bass boats trying to save people?
It was the local police, like I told you. It was the local anti-gun mayor and anti-gun police chief who issued that unconstitutional order that no one will be allowed to have guns. They're going to confiscate all the guns. And it was local law enforcement there, along with they brought in police officers from all over the country to help, and those police officers wound up violating the rights of the American people. And
a lot of the local police officers went home, took care of their families. What happened?
That's right. And that's another point, is that where you have good cops, in order for those good cops to go out and do their job and project out, you've got to make sure you've got a strong neighborhood watch to protect their homes. So that's why, in the end, with all these risks and all the corrupt politicians and all these corrupt police chiefs out there, it's a possibility you're going to have more of that in the future. But it will not do you any harm for you and your neighbors to be united for mutual aid and defense, so that the good cops will be more likely to go do their job. And also, if you and all the rest of the men of your county are organized as mutual defense for the county, it removes the excuse for heavy-handedness by anybody coming into your county. You got it covered. Hey, we got this. And hey, all these years you've been training and organizing, some of your people are going to be in the police department, and I would encourage the ones that are qualified to go become a reserve deputy, a reserve police officer, or part of the volunteer fire department. I did. I was a relatively young Montana lawyer, just out of law school, and I clerked for the Arizona Supreme Court, then moved to Montana with my family. I started working for the local volunteer fire department as a volunteer firefighter. And other lawyers were like, what are you doing? I said, well, this is my civic duty. So if you put yourself in the first responder community, becoming part of volunteer fire, half the fire departments in the United States are still volunteer. You're on the volunteer ambulance team as a volunteer EMT, whatever it is you jump into, you're now on the inside of the system, the current first responder system in your community. And that from there, you can influence what they do and don't do when the chips are down. So the next time you have a disaster or some kind of emergency, whatever, the pandemic or whatever, you're more likely to have people in your community unite and say no to anything coming down from the governor, from your mayor, from whoever. If you're united together, and that includes your local first responder community, not just you standing on the outside, banging on the glass, trying to get them to do the right thing. But if you're part of that system, and they're part of you as volunteers, unpaid volunteers, what's wrong with that? That's what I want to encourage all the men in every county to do. But you got to come together, neighborhood, church, town, and then county.
You can't leave out your wife and children being able to defend themselves as well. Because that gives you confidence.
I'm not leaving them out. But I'm telling the men, like you said earlier, men have a responsibility. You said it yourself, right? Men have a responsibility to be protectors. So certainly women can do an awful lot. But I want every man to feel
No. If you got taken care, that makes it more available to go and help, your neighbors and county when mom's got to take care of business. Donna has her own arms and so on. My kids, we had a pizza restaurant, and I remember it was a Christmas party about a week before Christmas. Donna and I were at, and our kids were, they're late teens, and they capable. And the four of them, they could run the restaurant, so for a few hours. And they had a drunk guy came in and went back in the kitchen and caused some mayhem. And my 14-year-old son pulled out the 9. You got to leave now.
Good.
Yep, sorry to bother you. Tip of the hat, kind of, and gone. Now, a lot of people would have been, appalled by that and the story of, oh my God. But our children were all trained. They understood the law. They knew when it would be a thing, and brandishing a firearm, in defense of yourself and your family, because he was, like trying to, muscle in on my daughters, and it was just behind the light. Didn't leave, you got to leave. That kind of capability in a family and diversity of training and capability and the firearm themselves and whatever else that needs to be done is what provides the confidence for the men to go and help their community. Sure. You can't just leave your family. This is why peace officers, well, not peace officers anymore, law enforcement, in New Orleans, they're nowhere to be found. If they had families, man, they're taking care of, a mama and babies. So they had to bring in, but this is so necessary, and we have been so insulated as a society for being, somebody else is going to take care of it for us. We got 911. The firemen are pretty fast. We had a fire out here. There's nobody coming out. Hey, we'll watch it burn, woohoo, from the freeway. So it's you have to be more self-sufficient. We have over the years, we have a couple of big, big red backpack full of, first aid gear and sutures and IV, all kinds of crap, And as time goes on, you just learn you can't count on somebody else is going to save your butt, and 911 isn't a guarantee somebody's coming. So this is the first thing. Have your land, have your food, have your water, prep, train, be ready. Then you have the ability to be worth something to somebody. And you can be, here's Stewart Rhodes here to save the day, which is how a lot of people felt with OathKeepers.
That's not what I'm saying. That's exactly upside down. What I'm saying is that you and your neighbors should come together now, not when you think you've got your optimum setup. You need to coordinate with your neighbors now, because for the immediate need of mutual defense, you need that now. So whoever your neighbors are right now, you should be talking to them and throwing a barbecue or a block party or whatever.
We've had parties. I tell you, this is how I do it, Stewart. Because I needed the tractor, and it's got a backhoe on it, it rains out here, the dirt roads, you got to fix that, and then somebody always needs a septic dug or something like that. We have been very public in making our tractor and myself, let me know when you need a pile of dirt moved over. Let me know when you need a hole dug. I've done that several times.
Good.
Oh, who's their new best friend? Okay. Well, then you start finding out what their mindset is. I'm just a good neighbor. I just want to be a good neighbor. Do I want to know their politics? Not right away. Time with them, think you're a good guy and kind of, then you start developing. Well, we created a mesh network. We covered like 400 square miles, 200 down, 100 up, with a cell tower 120 degree of whatever that we put on one of the local mountains here. So we're working with the Xano Crypto to build the market, Agris market, and a communication hub that's outside of the cell structure, outside of even Starlink, outside of the system. The reason is because I know this is going to eventually happen. So I'm not oblivious to it. And my method is...
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're both saying in many ways the same thing. All I'm
No, we are.
Is you don't have time to wait on the security front. That's coming. It's an imminent threat. So
okay, imminent how much? Before you go, I want to get kind of something has to happen. What's got to happen?
Let me answer. So General Flynn thinks it's going to happen within 90 days. So that the chatter...
Which is what?
3 months.
Well, I mean, what is it you're talking is going to happen? China going to come explain it to us? What?
No, the terror attacks.
Oh.
So, like I said, you can look up Sarah Adams online. She's been talking about it for a long time. Go to Sean Ryan's podcast. There are multiple people that are out there as anti-terrorism experts saying that this is the chatter coming from Al-Qaeda, is that they have cells in the United States ready to go. And they're bragging about their intent. Their intent is to do multiple October 7th style attacks across the United States where they overwhelm local law enforcement and kill as many people as possible. Now, you can say what you want about October 7th and a possible stand down by the Israeli government. I think that's actually credible. I don't believe that they just had no ability to respond to attack helicopters or airborne or air mobile troops.
I think today is the 10th anniversary of the AK-47 Muslims Paris thing.
Right. So Mumbai is another big one. So the point is, though, is this is the intent expressed by Al-Qaeda. And, okay, yeah, people's like, oh, well, you mean CIA, duh? Well, sure. But the point is there's still terror cells in the United States. However you think they were created, by whatever mechanism they'll be used, I think
they already got them ready.
Yeah, I think they'll be used as that false choice. That's what I'm predicting. That they'll be used when they kick off and kill a bunch of kids. There most likely will be attack on schools or school buses. And as horrific as that is, that's just a reality. There's a really good book written by the same guy. I think his last name was Florsheim, the one that wrote 1 Second After. He wrote a great little mini novella called Day of Wrath. I encourage you to read that. He talks about attacks on schools where the terrorists overwhelm local law enforcement. They ambush them when they respond, and then they ambush the parents. When the parents run to the school to try to save their kids, then they're ambushed too. That's just reality. That's what's going to happen. And so it's very likely that's what they're going to do is hit soft targets like that cause terror, and then we'll have to fight. You're going to wind up in your community doing what you can to save children from being slaughtered by terrorists. I believe that's coming. So why not prepare for it now? And the easiest, shortest path to that
is homeschool.
Well, sure, but for the folks that don't homeschool, I mean, Bernie, you can go ahead and separate yourself if you want to and just homeschool. All my kids were homeschooled too. So you're preaching to the choir on that, brother. But there are a lot of people in your community that are not going to homeschool.
I understand.
And when their kids are slaughtered, they're going to look to Big Brother to come and save them, just like after 9/11. So if you don't want that false choice, you have got to come together with your neighbors, kicking and screaming, and organize for mutual defense of your county, including all the idiots that don't homeschool their kids.
Okay, let's get to skip to the end here. You're doing it by county.
Right. So
how are you going to structure? What is the OathKeeper infrastructure? People, you got database of whatever? They erase that from your brain. I mean, what's up?
No, OathKeepers.info for those that want to join OathKeepers. But the mission is not to get people to join OathKeepers. The real mission, I need a certain number of guys to help me. But the real mission, as always, is to get the people in your counties, in your communities, to recognize their responsibility. If they're prior service, their oath responsibility, but your responsibility as a man, in particular, as an American. Are you an American or Americant? So if you're an American, come together and do what the founders told you was necessary for mutual defense, which is the militia. And you can call it a posse in waiting if you're too, you want to use that nasty M word. Call it whatever you want to call it. I don't care. Come together for mutual aid defense in your county and do that now. And yes, while you're at it, the women can organize for doing their part too. I'm not leaving them out. But the men have a duty and responsibility. As men, like you said, the stronger of our species, we have a duty and responsibility. You're a load-bearing combat chassis. That's what a man is. You're given upper body strength for a reason. It's to use weapons and carry heavy loads. That's just what we're designed for. So we got to get in shape. We got to get ready because it's coming. It's coming whether you like it or not. It's coming. So be ready for it so we can weather it so we don't fall for the false choice, or fewer of us fall, and all your neighbors included, fall for the false choice and go into Terminator land. That's what we have to do. Let's just get it done.
We're up against some powerful foes, but what demonstrated is the most powerful empire on the planet, the British Empire at the time. A bunch of rebels, took care of that.
Yeah.
Birth of America. Then we have, a lot of examples. Certainly the United States kick-ass military of in Iraq, and you had a bunch of, teenagers, kids, and the center resistor of IED of you're not going unscathed. We have the Afghanistan showed it to us and the Soviets. So it's not, the Romans taught us one thing. Conquer is easy. Control is not.
Sure.
So they conquer, they'll never control human beings, and I'm thinking certainly not Americans, because we've been beaten down so much for so long, but there's many of us, certainly older ones, that are going, nah, I'd rather die on my feet than, kiss and boot on my knees kind of thing. Yeah. So I see this coming. That's why I've been and the reason that I support Stewart is no matter how much after he went through all his January 6th stuff, he's over a year in solitary confinement. He gets out. Right after that, we meet. Sound mind and body. Knew exactly what the bad guys did not want was this. A rational, peaceful, capable of violence, men in this country take their responsibility for being a freaking human being, certainly in America, and advocate for us taking the responsibility and not delegating it to everybody else all the time. Yeah. That has a look, a feel, a mechanism. Stewart Rhodes, thank you. One less thing I got to do. So I'm like, but I want to help. But I'm more, in the motivational, in the packaging, in the marketing, in the, keeping it a clear vision of what this is about. The truth will set them free. with the right art, and that's just another little tidbit on the side, peripheral from unexpected, perpendicular, but relevant direction in support of what Stewart doing. And what happens is it keeps me more insulated from, I don't have to be a direct, association or whatever. Of course, they'll bring the show up. But, this is, the J6 thing, when they subpoenaed me to go and I'm like, bite me and whatever, how that happened, they were using these radio shows in the prosecution of you guys,
Sure.
And
they played clips from your interview with
Ed Vallejo.
Yeah, Ed Vallejo, yeah.
Yeah.
So
let
me just say this in closing. So for those that it takes courage to be an oath keeper, all the more so now than ever.
Yeah.
I know there are men out there that are willing to do that, but your real mission is not to break glass in case of problem. Oath keepers come save you. It's to teach the American people about what they can do at the local level, which is right in line with what you're doing already, Ernie. So for those that can't do that, you can at least donate. You can go to givesendgo.com/oath and support us with a donation to help us with the rebuild of Oath Keepers. But even bigger than Oath Keepers is this Strong County project. And for that, I want to make it very clear, I do not and will not have a database of who is in the neighborhood watch, who's in the town watch, who's in the local church security team, or who's in the county watch. I do not want that. I don't want to have a simple database of bad guys to look at to find all of you. My goal is to advise you and train you and just get you to do it. And you've already got people in your community that are retired military that can help you do this. My only, like Sam Adams says, it doesn't take a majority to prevail. It takes a tireless minority to ignite brush fires of liberty in the hearts of men. So this is my job, is to light a brush fire in your mind to go do what you can do in your own neighborhood. I don't want to micromanage it. You go do it with your neighbors that you trust and find the people in your community, but get on it. You only got so much time. Let's presume you only have 3 months. Let's take General Flynn's prognosis as accurate and just pretend like 3 months from now it's going to kick off, guys. What are you going to do? When it kicks off, you're going to grab your rifle or shotgun and do what you can, but why not try to do what you can now and get organized and ready for when it kicks off? And along with that, to everything else that Ernie's advocating, I think you're spot on, Ernie. Micro communities, insulating yourselves, cryptocurrency, all of that, communication.
Mass communications.
Yeah. So look, we always follow the Special Forces model. You have medical, you have 2 medical experts on a team in SF, medical, engineering, intelligence, communications, and then security, fighting. So all of those are important. So I'm never focused only on the guns. It's also about emergency medical, emergency communication, and emergency engineering, clean water, heat, shelter. All that's essential. You got to have all of those things, but don't ignore the security element. All I'm saying. Okay.
Our situation, I'm 64 and we've been doing this for a long time. And it's, by the way, it's givesendgo.com/oath.
.com/oath. That's right.
So, go there and show some love and get on whatever list, get over it. You're on it. The one thing that, my wife, Donna, and has been, just freaking awesome, through all this. And what really, she just did it, basically, supportive wife kind of thing, and I believed that it was necessary, all the activism that we did and what was coming. It wasn't until the Ron Paul Revolution in 2008, and I had her go on the road with me. I said, you got to see what's happening. And then it was like Dr. Paul cured her apathy. That was kind of a meme at the time.
Right.
And that really made an impact because she needed to have a Christian man that was clear, not abusive, not abrasive, not, just, clearly mapping it out, what was going to happen and why. And so that kind of got her going. Then our kids were coming of age, and when they go to work or whatever, they were taking a lot of our supplies, and all of a sudden they're, like, man, where are all my Ron Paul bags going? All they've got, hey, you got any more of those, Dad? I'm like, oh, okay, you're trying to sneak them. I get it. So it was our family kind of did what a lot of them would perceive their part.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But I promised Donna that in this last, when COVID happened, we did the Love Bus Liberty tour, because I knew what was going to happen. There was going to be oppression, and they had to have, resistance is not futile example, and us doing sign everywhere sign thing. So to get her on board, I told her, you do this. When this is over, this too shall pass, hopefully. When this goes, I will build your home in the desert within an hour and a half of grandkids' soccer games. I mean, that was the deal.
Yeah.
When we did the occupy the land part around it, it was kind of my way of, doing what you're talking about. The community, the communication, to do all that stuff that I knew that we needed, to be able to insulate from and prepare for. So it's taken, I'm trying to keep my promise to myself and to her. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing the way I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's good.
Because
Yeah,
I promised my wife.
Yeah.
But I haven't abandoned Stewart Rhodes, okay?
No,
So,
I'm not saying that. Look, it's all synergistic. It's all a part. Those are different pieces of the puzzle. I'm just bringing up the reality of what's coming and what the play is going to be. The play is going to be that Hegelian dialectic. They create a problem. They opened our borders for a decade, flooded all these terrorists. It's just reality. And along with all the proxies for communist China in the drug cartels, that's reality. The Chinese do have their cartel proxies here. That's who's trafficking women and children for the pedophiles. So that's a reality. And when things kick off, they're going to use them to destabilize and destroy this country from the inside out. And them is the communist Chinese, along with the oppressive overlords that want to be overlords of the tech elites. And they want chaos, because out of chaos comes They want chaos. They want us to be weak and then be desperate when it happens. That's why we have to become strong. And you know that. So I'm preaching to the choir on that, but I'm just trying to wake you up to the security.
Never let a good chaos go to waste.
Right. But the security issue can be fixed quickly. It doesn't take a lot to bring the men together, especially the men that are already trained, the military veterans. But I mean, I don't look at it like this, like, oh, all you non-veterans, you just step back and let us veterans protect you. That's not how the founders designed us to be, right? We're all the militia. So what the job of the veterans is to provide leadership and training for the rest of the men. Just in closing, last one last comment. Some of General Washington's most effective generals, like Nathaniel Greene and Henry Knox, for two examples, were not even prior military. They were just well-learned guys in the books and like brushed up on military tactics. And like Henry Knox was a bookseller. He just sat around and read books on artillery and realized the utility of the guns at Fort Ticonderoga and made sure they got there. He's not a prior military guy. And in many ways, because he wasn't prior military, he thought outside the box. So all you guys who are not prior military, don't think that you're a second-class citizen to the guys that are prior military. Utilize your intellect, your savvy, your construction backgrounds, whatever your background is, put that to good use. But just come together with other men in your community. That's all I'm saying. Let's work together.
No, I'm with you, brother. I'm glad we had this conversation, and it's good to have had this so that people understand your mindset and your thoroughness, and thinking this through and what should be done. Because you did your part with OathKeepers. We followed that from the beginning, and it was kind of born out of the Ron Paul thing and so on.
Absolutely.
And you clerked for the Supreme Court. You did
Arizona, right?
And didn't you work Ron Paul's office at one time or something, Washington?
His DC office, right.
Yeah. So and you're a lawyer, Yale grad. I mean, it's not like you're not informed.
Recovering lawyer.
Recovering. Yeah, I'll give you that. So this, which is what made Stewart Rhodes so dangerous. So Stewart Rhodes was a target. He didn't go into the Capitol. He wasn't advocating for any violence or anything. He wasn't. They didn't care. They did not like this demeanor, this insistence on maintaining your authority and responsibility over your own life and using that in defense of your own community, your family, and have the skills to be able to. So that's what makes you dangerous to them.
Right.
And I understand that. So
and the rest
keep
of
us
the J6ers, all the J6ers who went to trial and refused to give way. I believe that they see us as a danger. So guys like Joe Biggs, another 82nd Airborne veteran, combat vet, Don Pizzola, Marine Corps veteran, all those veterans were singled out for for commutation, not pardons. I think for a reason. They fear those men. Those are the men proved up. They went to trial and faced the music and refused to bend the knee. And so guys like that are dangerous to the regime. Absolutely.
When it comes down to it's time to, get your gun, whether you're allowed or pardoned or not don't mean shit. Okay, well, you weren't pardoned, so you're not allowed to defend your life and community. Really? I mean, come on, man.
Well, but
so
the point is that they're trying to dispirit us and crush us. We're not going to let that happen. So.
Well, you've been a great example of that. Is there one of the other guys that, think about it. If there's one of the other guys that said, bite me, that might be an interesting interview. Let me know if somebody wants to do that. That would be interesting to get, not more than one, but of course you're the head one. I always try to work up to you.
I think you should interview Joe Biggs. It'd be a great interview for you.
Yep, send me. Get the contact information. Do Donna a solid because she always yells at me for not getting all the information. I just say, get this guy. Yeah, where's the stuff?
Enrique Char. Have you done an interview with Ivan Ranklin yet?
No.
He'd be a good one.
I just go to the head. I talk to you, man. I don't need to waste time with these guys.
Nah, we'll be on a live stream tonight on X actually. Myself and Ivan Ranklin and Enrique Tarrio talking, and I think Joe Biggs is going to join us, talking about this issue of these pardons for the alternate slates. They should apply to us. We're going to make that argument tonight. That starts at 7 p.m. Central on X.
And what would people search for on X.com?
Go to
7 Central. What would they look for?
Enrique Tarrio's channel. It's going to be on his. In fact,
Rick Otario, spell Otario for us.
Tarrio. I'll send you a link real quick. I'll send you, because myself and Ivan and Enrique have been talking about this all day. I'll send it to you right now. Let's see, where's it at? There it is. Send it to you right now. I'm texting this to Donna.
I just forwarded it to Donna to promote anyway. So you sent it to Donna. She'll take care of business.
OathKeepers and Proud Boys pardoned by POTUS. I mean, this is Ivan's brainchild. I think he's right. The language of the pardon for the whistleblowers, or for the alternate slates, I think does reach all the rest of us. It says not limited to these people. Anybody that supported these alternate slates are hereby pardoned. So I'll take it. I think it's a good argument. We'll give it a shot.
Boom. Do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, man, thanks for coming on. It's a great conversation. It's an hour and 56 minutes, and we wanted to do a 2 hour.
You're a pain in the ass as always, but that's okay.
Yeah, no, I make them say it. I want you to say it. And that was one thing I was really pressing them, trying to get them. You said solitary confinement. Think upon their sins. And what kind of creative. Well, a lot of us that are experienced know. You be nice, you be principled, you be persistent, you be diligent, you be respectful, you be until it's time not to be. But that's what those don't like. They don't want to have this kind of influence on people as a rational, unemotional decision that is, and that's why they don't want to be messing with military, veterans, police, people that have taken an oath, principled libertarians and so on, because once that switch is flipped, you're in warrior, here we go, eye of the tiger, grit your teeth mode, it's over. You just killed the person I was before. You made me, we acquiesced in the necessity. You do that, it's on.
That's right.
Do they want to pull that trigger? They want to pull the trigger when they know they think they're going to win, when it's over, when we squash it.
Terminator land over your heads. That's when they're right. We can't.
Hey, man.
Terminator land. Can't let them happen.
I'm a supporter. I don't got to be on a list, but let me know how this thing's going in Washington. I already got my plan of what I wanted to do, and it's sitting there waiting, and kind of got the domain
let's work together, because that's part of it. The message is going to be declassify now and save the kids, but along with that, do the declassification, but also fire the blocks, fire Pam Bondi, fire Patel.
Well, that's all your thing. My thing is the truth will set them free, and just have, because I could just put up a page and it just have promotion of, the event, and we want for the children, and kind of the children. I'm all over that.
Yeah, it's really what it's about. All the sex trafficking across our border, that's why I was in favor of locking the border down with the military a long time ago. It's for the kids, period. Yep.
Boom.
Yeah.
Stewart Rhodes, givesendgo.com/oath and oathkeepers.info now. Oathkeepers.info. They took it. They want like gazillion dollars to get the, .org, whatever. It doesn't matter. .info.
Right.
I'm using a lot of the info a lot, because I'm thinking that's kind of what we're doing anyway. So here we go. Thanks for coming on. Please keep us informed about what's going on in Washington. And power to you, brother. You held up awesomely under you were a warrior all the way through this, even while you're incarcerated. Thank you very much, Stewart.
By the grace of God. By the grace of God. All right. God bless, brother.
Peace.
Take care.